Good evening, rockers. Vegas Rock Goddess here on the rocks. Total entertainment. Coming to you live from somewhere off the Las Vegas Strip. Tonight, we are interviewing the guitarist for Hell's Addiction. This is a great band from the UK. They have a strong presence right now with a new record out, 9 o'clock Horses. So we're going to talk to Dan and get the lowdown on Hell's Addiction. All right, Dan is knocking on the door, so let's let him in. Hey, Dan, are you there? Okay, I don't see anything. I see him. I don't see him. Dan, are you there? Okay, we're gonna technical difficulties, folks. Hang tight. Hey, Dan. I can't hear you. I can see you now. Just make sure your microphone is on. Oh, well, it's great to finally meet you. I know
Thank you, Angie.
it's been a few weeks of rescheduling and craziness. As you all know, in rock and roll, this always happens.
Absolutely.
So I am a huge fan of Hell's Addiction.
Well, thank you.
So when my friend Dave Tedder said, "Hey, do you want to interview Hell's?" I said, "Hell yeah!" Because I mean, listen to you guys on Spotify. Like in the mornings, they'll come on my playlist. I mean, I love you guys, and this new
That's awesome.
is really great. So let's get into it about 9 o'clock Horses. How long did you guys record this during pandemic?
We did. It was a really long process. We started recording it just before the pandemic, and of course, like everybody else in the world, we got everything was put on hold. We couldn't do anything. So yeah, the whole process is I think Def Leppard recorded Hysteria quicker than we recorded this.
I'm sure. I mean, over the past couple years, I think bands have re-honed in on their writing skills, their communication skills, and really kind of, I think, beefing up their um, musical interludes with the fans.
Yeah.
So that way, when this pandemic actually started opening up, now bands are starting to release their material from that time. So I'm really, interested because I have three songs that I like right now: "Cannot Hide," "Leave It at Home Alone," and your masterpiece. Let's talk about "Leave It Alone."
Okay. So Leave
Now,
It Alone.
yeah.
Um, that one, it was one of the later tracks that we recorded, one of the last three, I think, that we recorded. And like I would say, probably 100% of the tracks on this album started in here, where I just kind of sit down and mess around with something. I think, hang on, and I hit record. And then the way it works is I then send it to Ben. Ben puts the lyrics to it, and hey presto. But yeah, Leave It Alone. The subject matter is basically aimed at people who we all know, that be it on the scene, be it a family member that won't leave things alone, as in be it drugs, alcohol, or
Right.
whatever. And so it's aimed at that. You just yeah. You can't leave it alone. You know, what's the line? You know, wasting your days away, you know, the pain you cause to your family and
Right.
friends. So that was the story behind that. Riff wise, I think you know, it's one of my favorite keys is F sharp, because you know, like I guess a fair few of us, Skid Row, opening track of Slave to the Grind,
Of course.
Monkey Business, F sharp.
Yeah. I mean, as a guitar player, you look at things a lot differently than the rest of the band. I love guitar players. I just love the guitar in general. It's been one of my favorite instruments for all my life. And the guitarists that I interview have really a different take on how when they're recording a record.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think everybody has to take ownership of their own part in the bigger story, if you like. For me, it's all about you know, we're a product of our heroes at the end of the day, and I want that big searing guitar sound, and I'm always conscious that of when I'm recording that it's all about the sound for me, and you know, and being able to create that sound, and you know, sometimes you find out that that great big guitar sound you heard, you know, you remember from the 80s or whatever, is 4 or 5 different guitars mixed together, and that's for me is the most important thing. It's
Yeah.
the how it sounds, how's it going to come across, what do I want to hear from a guitar, you know, not what does anybody else want to hear, because I think the moment you start trying to please everybody else apart from yourself, it's a thankless task.
Right. And I see you've got quite a few axes up there. You
I
want to
have,
break
yeah.
down one and show us?
Yeah, well, do you know what? I've got a fair few in here, so I've got a couple of my favorites here. Snakeskin
Nice.
US Jackson, and yeah, that's. I'm trying to think what was actually used on the album. I've got a fair few gems. It's usually a mixture of my Les Pauls at the back there.
Right. You got a lot there.
I think there's kind of 30 or 40 in total, but
Oh my
um,
gosh.
yeah, I know it's a terrible addiction. But yeah, you know, leads and stuff would be some sort of
Ooh, yeah,
gem.
that one's awesome.
Yeah, and they're just great guitars, you know. Gems and stuff like that. I've always gravitated to them because it's like, you know, it shouldn't be difficult to play a guitar.
Right. And is Jackson your go-to? I know you said you do Gibsons as well, but is
Well,
Jackson...
it's kind of a really. I've got a couple of Jacksons. Another one of my favorite Jacksons, by the way. If you're familiar with the film Crossroads,
Yes.
that's my Jack Butler from
Oh my
Crossroads.
gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a mixture of Jackson and Ibanez and Gibson.
Yeah, and you know the great thing about your band is you have a really good mix of not only metal, melodic, and rock and roll.
Mm.
And that's what I really love about your sound. Because it has that straight up in your face rock and roll.
Yeah. I think it's a spirit rather than something you can't manufacture it. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah,
Um,
can't. And
so
this
yes,
record,
thank you very much.
yeah, and this new record attests to that. Because I know when I got to know your band, What Are You Gonna Do was one of the songs that I kind of gravitated towards first before Dave even mentioned your band. And I'm like, wait a second, I know who that is. Because I mean, Spotify sends me a lot of music my
Yeah.
way to listen to. And yeah, I mean, I just love your sound. Now, have you guys ever played the States on like at a major tour or anything?
It was spoken about a little while ago. Again, pre-pandemic,
Yeah,
there was a couple of options that we had to come over and play in the States. We would love to. All our heroes, uh,
right.
all my big heroes are the 80s, Sunset Strip guys. And um, so, yeah, it feels like for me, it's the home of hard rock. So really
Right.
neat to come across.
And I mean, you guys have an amazing rock history. I mean, you
Mm.
started this band in 2013. Is that correct?
Well, I'm actually the newest member of the band.
Okay.
So the first two albums I wasn't involved with. So Raise Your Glass and Broken.
Right.
Everything after that, I so yes, the band started in 2013 essentially as a four-piece, with Liam playing guitar and Ben, who is obviously our wonderful vocalist. He played the rhythm guitar and sang. And just before I joined, they'd got another guitar player, but it didn't work out. So here's the weird thing. They Hell's Addiction were announced for the Download Festival, and I knew the guys because I was working in a music store in my hometown selling guitars. And the guys would come in, and I remember, it had just been announced that they'd got the Download gig, and I said, "Guys, that's phenomenal! What an honor!" Thought nothing more of it. And then I got a message from Luke, the drummer, and said, "Dude, we've just got rid of our guitar player. Can you come and join us, even if it's just for a couple of gigs?" I'm like, no, I'm in. And here we are, 7 years later. It's
Wow.
just one. And so here's the really cool thing. So I was offered the Hell's Addiction gig 2 weeks before Download.
Wow.
One of those weeks, I was on holiday with my family, so I couldn't do anything. It was a middle of nowhere. So it was like, Download. I said, just send me the set list and I'll have it on my headphones. So I got back off holiday. I ran through the set in one day. We rehearsed it the next day, and then we went to play Download.
Wow. I
So,
mean, I hear a lot of amazing stories from bands and how they've connected with, either the drummer or the guitar player or the lead vocalist. I mean, this business is so serendipity. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's so many great things that come out of
yeah,
just the random situations.
yeah, and it can be the difference between opening or not opening an email, and
Right.
that was it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think all of us are grateful that you did.
Yeah, yeah,
Because this new record is stellar. I mean, you guys really worked hard on this during pandemic. I
very
mean,
much
you
so.
can tell in every single song. And you guys have an amazing following on Spotify, which is great. I mean, getting you guys to the US would definitely be number one on the list, I think.
Let's say it's a huge priority for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, because we have so many festivals now that are coming back from pandemic, which is crazy, uh, like all over the country.
yeah,
And you guys have a lot there too, as well, though.
we do. Obviously, we are, on a much, much, much smaller scale.
Donington, though, is the biggest one out there.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, obviously, when my first ever Donington was 1988. I was very young, and it was I went because I'm a huge Kiss fan, and yeah, it was Kiss and Iron Maiden, and Halloween, I think, opened it up, and
Yeah,
then this little band that kind of few people had heard of called Guns N' Roses came on.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, Halloween is kind of making a comeback, which is great. I mean, I haven't seen those guys play in a long time. I
no,
met the
great band.
drummer for that band decades ago, believe it or not, at a Bon Jovi concert backstage. He was there. He was friends actually with Richie Sambora at the time. So
My
yeah,
hero.
yeah. I mean, so anyway, yeah. I mean, I think the British invasion is coming back to the US. I mean, I'm seeing so much growth with that type of sound, because that's what I kind of grew up with. It
Yeah.
was the British sound, like Saxon. I used to listen to, well, of course, Judas Priest, but bands like Dora Pesh.
Mm.
These bands have been around for decades, and they're kind of coming back, which is great.
Absolutely. Well, it's always testament that rock and roll never dies.
Yes.
And the whole, it's like, it's up for me with the UK and the US, it's chicken and egg. Okay, it's like who invented rock and roll? Okay, well, the British invasion with the Beatles and the Stones kind of, well, that influenced the 70s US stuff, but then it's like this. It's always the US will go, here you go, here's 80s hard rock for you. And then we'll go, okay, here's this for you. And it's
Right.
always been a kind of a mutual tipping of the cap to each other. And I think, for me, I'm sort of heavily influenced by the kind of late 80s. For want of, they call it hair metal now. It was never called hair metal,
No.
but the hard rock scene. For me, my heroes are Vito Bratta from White Lion, and Bruce Kulick from Kiss, Eddie
Yes.
Van Halen, Steve Vai. That whole era, for me, has never really been bettered. And talk, going back to the new 9 O'Clock Horses album, it's like, if my heroes made an album now, what would it sound like? And that's what we were going for.
Yeah. And I totally hear not only some American influences, but the British for sure. Because like
Yeah.
I'm a big Queen fan, and God, I hear some elements of Queen in there.
I mean, who isn't? If you're in a rock band, who isn't influenced by Queen?
Yeah.
Well, Queen was the reason I started playing guitar, and it was in the mid '70s, and I was only very small, and again, I remember asking my parents what the crying sound was, and it turned out to be Brian May's guitar. And
Oh,
from that
Brian May is
moment,
amazing.
yeah, I was hooked. And that was it. And here we are.
Yeah. What are some of your other influences, Dan?
So me personally, again, it's a huge nod to Kiss, and to Van Halen, and Motley Crue, and Wasp, and Cinderella, and the list can go on. Firehouse. But I'm also influenced by a lot of kind of non-hard rock stuff. There's a guy, I don't know whether he was kind of huge over here in the 80s. I don't know how he was over in the US. A guy called Nick Kershaw.
Yeah, I love Nick. He's great
Yeah,
guitar player.
incredible. What, again, a huge influence. What a songwriter. And if I could take anything from that, it's like, there's a song on the new album called "Crying Over Me," which has got loads of different bits in that. It's for me, it's like the most interesting song that we play. When we were rehearsing before we were recording it, it was so complicated for the rest of the guys. We had a whiteboard going, okay, intro, riff two, this, so they could follow the song. And it's, yeah, if I'm taking anything from like Nick Kershaw and people like that, and Elton John, is making the song sound interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like I was a big Phil Lynott fan,
Oh yeah.
and he had a big influence on me, for sure. I mean, just that sound, that British sound, but clean. But there's a lot of different. He was a big blues fan,
Yeah.
so I'm really happy to see your band going in that direction, because I think in 24 this is going to be the sound that
I
we're
hope
going to
so.
be hearing.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what are your plans for playing out? Like, what's going on in the UK right now?
So we've got some festivals booked already for next year. And now it's really, the album coming out 4 or 5 weeks before Christmas. It's good really, because what it means is we can get together over Christmas and go, let's put together a tour and
Right.
and do that and really, go out, and because it used to be that you would do a tour to promote the album. Now you do an album to promote a tour. The way
Yeah.
that, it's all kind of twisted and different.
And I think you can thank pandemic and social media for that, because I think a lot of bands didn't have that resource. They were at home, they were recording, they were processing all their information, and now they're releasing it to the world in 23, 24.
Like you were saying earlier, I think if there's one good thing that kind of came out of the whole lockdown and pandemic thing, it was that you had to find different ways to reach out to people. You couldn't just, you couldn't just go down to put a poster in a shop window and hope people turn up for your gig. So you had to be inventive. And there's a song on the album called Your Master Plan, which is again one of my favorites. Great, another nod to White Snake and stuff like that.
Right.
And we'd recorded it, and then lockdown hit. So Ben sort of said, well, why don't we do the thing where you can just kind of record the guitar at home, and then I'll record the vocals, and we'll do like a split screen thing. And it ended up being the most viral thing we ever did. And it was so simple.
Right.
Yeah. And for me as a guitar player, it was like I seem to be in here every day going, okay, here's me playing along to a Firehouse track, here's me playing along to a White Lion track. But it was just a way of kind of going, here we go.
Yeah, and kind of opening up those juices and, letting the things flow and really kind of getting the ideas going. And I think with this record, I mean, you guys really kind of hit it in a lot of different areas.
It feels great for us. We're incredibly proud of it. And of course, what we want now is just as many people in the world as we can to listen to it, and hopefully they'll agree with us.
Yes, for sure. I'm a big fan, and this has been a great conversation with you. I'd really like to interview the whole band at some point next year. I'll talk to Dave and we'll get that set up. Because I really love the fact that you guys are in it to win it.
Yeah, it can't be any other way, can it?
No, not at all. But so I'm gonna look forward to chatting back with you, getting in touch with you again, and continuing our amazing conversation about Hell's Addiction in 2024. But before I let you go, why don't you tell the fans where they can find all their Hell's Addiction information?
Okay, so the first and obvious place is hellsaddiction.com on our website. So you can see all our lovely new merchandise. You can order the album, you can order the old EPs and the old albums as well. They're all on there. If you want to talk to us and send us messages, the usual kind of social media stuff, so your Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, and obviously through Spotify and iTunes and all that. Give us a listen, and if you like what you hear, tell us. It means the world.
Yeah, and you know what? You guys are awesome. If I could ask you one more question. If you were on a desert island and you were only allowed to take 3 albums with you,
okay,
what 3 albums would you take?
I would take Headless Children by Wasp. I would take Revenge by Kiss. And Night at the Opera by Queen.
Oh my God, those are 3 blockbusters. That's awesome. But it was great talking to you, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Happy holidays to the band. And we will look forward to talking to you again in 24.
Excellent. We'll talk to you in the new year.
Yes. Thank you so much and take care.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dan Weir from Hell's Addiction. This new album, 9 O'Clock Horses, check it out, man, on their website, hellsaddiction.com, and of course on Spotify.com. I am the Vegas rock goddess, Carol Nevin. Thank you for watching. Always like and subscribe to On the Rocks Total Entertainment. You never know who I will be talking to next.